to talk about gut health and building up your immune system. In 2017, I had a major flare-up with Lyme disease, and a friend of mine who happens to be an alternative practitioner that's worked with my kids recommended that I look into different recipes for healing your intestines and your gut, because that is the foundation of your immune system. And she also suggested that I start making my own bone broth or chicken stock. So I have been making bone broth and chicken stock since 2017, and that has been a huge part of my not only going into remission with Lyme disease, but my healing process. And I want to talk a little bit today about what I do for that. First of all, you want to start off with getting a good recipe. This book is called Gut and Psychology Syndrome, and that is written by a neurologist, Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, who is also the founder of the GAPS diet, which she used to help her child who is autistic, and also has worked with many people who have had different ailments, including Lyme disease and other conditions. And in this book, she's got a lot of great recipes, and she talks about using broth as the foundation of the GAPS diet. And so this is one area where you can go, if you find this book, that you can look to find a good recipe. This book is called The Heal Your Gut Cookbook, which is has a foreword by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, which also has recipes for healing. And then this book, which is just a fantastic book that I have loved to read, and it's just got a lot of great recipes. It's called Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon. I like to follow Sally Fallon's recipe when I do my own chicken broth, and that's where I go to for that. Today I want to talk about a couple different ways that you can make broth. When I do my cooking, I'm going to make an actual bone broth, but you can also make a broth using a whole chicken or a whole bird of some sort. So this is a Purdue chicken. When you're picking your meat source, you want to make sure it's organic, it's free range. You want to make sure that they have no hormones or antibiotics. You want as clean meat as possible. Or you could use duck. This is a whole duck that I'm actually going to roast in a day or two to make my own duck fat, and I got this at Costco. Additionally, you could buy an organic or hormone and antibiotic-free turkey, and that's a great way to make broth as well. And you can get those at Aldi or at Whole Food stores. Today I'm going to make an actual bone broth, but I wanted to show you other methods of making broth. And when I first started, I actually would take a whole chicken and I would cook it for about 8 hours. So I would put it in a large stock pot or a Dutch oven, and I would fill it with water. You want to use filtered water when you do the process. And then you would cook it for about 8 hours. You would start off boiling it, and then you would cook it for about 8 hours. And that would, sometime during that period, you want to cut up the chicken and the bones to get the most nourishment, and that is a great way to make broth. All right, so now we're gonna start making our bone broth. And the first thing we need is bones. So what I do is when I cook like organic or free-range chicken or duck, I save the bones. So I have some bones that I've kept in the freezer for a while. I do this about every, I would say 2 to 3 months. I make a big batch and I freeze it. And so this time it's been a little bit longer, so I've accumulated more of the bones than I typically do. So I just grab some bones and I put them in my Dutch oven here. So I'm going to just grab that, put that in my Dutch oven, get that filled up. I like to add extra things to the bone broth to give it more nourishment. So one of the things that's pretty popular for people who consistently make bone broth is using chicken necks. So I have a bag of frozen chicken necks that I got at the Whole Food store. And these have not been cooked before, they're raw. And so I'm just going to add that in there. And it's really important, according to Sally Fallon and Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, it's really important when you are making any type of chicken broth that you want to have collagen. So you can either buy collagen at the store or you can make your own. And the way you make your own is actually by adding chicken feet. It might sound a little gross, but it is full of nourishment and it's really important for your gut health. So I'm going to add a few chicken feet in here. That I buy them in bulk at the health food store and I just freeze them. Okay, so when you're dealing with raw meat, raw chicken, you want to make sure you wash your hands good. So I have my hand soap here, and I use my hand soap it's an unscented glycerin hand soap that I use because I am sensitive to chemicals in soap and perfumes. So I want to make sure I get my hands washed good. Alright. There you go. So now that I have my bones ready to go, then we need to add some vegetables. So I usually like to cut up carrots or celery. So right now I'm cutting up some celery and carrot. They're both organic. Everything you want to use when you're making broth must be organic because it's really important that you make this as pure and whole as possible. I get my carrot and celery at Costco because you can buy it less expensively in bulk, and so that's where I get that. So I'm going to add these to my stock pot and just put it on top like this. Now, it's really important when you're making a bone broth that you pull out all the good nutrients. The bone marrow is full of really good stuff for your body. In order to do that, you have to have the right ingredients. You want to use raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar with the mother enzyme. It's really important that it is as pure and raw as possible. So this is some apple cider vinegar that I got at the store. And so I just like to pour a little on there. I would say maybe, like a couple teaspoons. If you're more someone who likes to follow exact recipe, I've been doing it for so many years that I just kind of know and throw it in. And then you want to use a good quality sea salt as well to flavor it and add to it. And so I like to get the Himalayan crystal sea salt. So Himalayan salt is a great source of nutrition and minerals that you need for your body. And so I do not use table salt in your bone broth. Make sure it's a good sea salt, especially Himalayan salt. So I'm going to go ahead and put some of this in there. And again, you can put like maybe a tablespoon or so in there. But since again, I've been doing it for so long, I just throw it in there and don't even pay attention to the recipe in that way. And then black pepper is also really important to use. So I like to crush my own organic black peppercorn. So I have my pepper mill, and so I'm just going to take this and put some on there. I love black pepper. It's just a great way to flavor things, and it gives the bone broth a great taste. And so I want to do it liberally. When you're using black pepper, I would recommend using organic, and if you have the whole peppercorns, that's the best way to go. All right, now you need to have a water source. When you're making bone broth, please do not use tap water. Make sure it is a good quality filtered water or reverse osmosis water. We have at our house what's called a Berkey, which is our home filtration system, and that is, from what I know, has been probably one of the highest recommended filtration systems for water. I know my practitioner recommended it, and I've talked to a lot of people in the holistic health and Lyme community, and a lot of people also highly recommend that. There are other systems you can use, but that's what we use. I have some water ready to go here, so I just put it right in this pan. So I'm just going to dump water right in there. And you want to fill it up to the top because you want it to cover it up. If you're using a whole chicken or a whole turkey or duck, you also want to just make sure that when you put it in your stock pot or your pan that it's completely covered. All right, so now I have it all ready to go. Typically, they would recommend that you would want this to sit for about an hour at room temperature, just to let everything kind of settle in and get all at the same temperature, and then it cooks better. I think today we're just going to go ahead and get it started though, because it's already afternoon and I want to get this going so that it's not up late tonight, because it takes a good full day to cook. So I'm going to go ahead and get this going. So I'm going to transfer this to the stove, and then you want to bring it up to a boil. So it's going to take about a half an hour to bring this up to a boil. So I'm just going to let it sit there and bring it up to a boil. And so you see the necks and bones and feet there. So we'll let that go up to a boil, and then once it's boiling, then you want to skim off some of the impurities that will start popping up. So that's just how we start our bone broth, and now we just have to wait. So once you get your bone broth going, you want to bring it to a nice good rolling boil to get all the impurities out. And so now I'm going to go and skim off some of the impurities. So you just take a sieve and just pull out the white, some of the white stuff. It is. I usually like it to boil for a few minutes to get the chicken necks good and cooked somewhat, because once you start slow cooking it, it'll take a lot longer. You want to make sure that the meat is thoroughly cooked. Once that is done cooking, then what I'll do is I will cover it up and put on simmer, and you want to do at least 6 hours. So I'm going to just now let it boil a little bit. I'm going to cover it up and simmer it, and then once it's simmered out, I can show you how we finish it off.